authenticity is the best. And when you have creators who are just sharing really cool, real stories, it's always so much better. We currently have a campaign where we'll work with over 200,000 creators.
In a sea of mega influencers, why do small voices still matter so much?
Micro influencers just have really awesome stories to tell. And typically they have one thing that they talk about passionately.
What's one shift in the creator economy that's flying under the radar?
Most creators now who are bigger have a talent agent. I think they also need someone who's like building their business, who's their CEO of their business.
Risk management is a very big part of running an agency in influencer marketing. Right?
The biggest thing that we do is influencer identification and recruitment. And that comes down to, are you working with the right people who are going to drive the right outcomes?
Hello everyone, this is Shubham Tiwari. I'm the Associate Director of Content and Socials at Phyllo, the universal solution for social media background checks and influencer vetting. This is season 3 and we have wonderful guests for you. And that lineup of guests include Mae Karwowski, founder of Obivously. She's also the CEO, one of the most tech-forward influencer marketing agencies in the world, from early-stage micro-influencer campaigns to running global activations for brands like Google, Ultra, Amazon. Mae has spent the last decade defining what real scalable influence looks like. We are going to unpack a lot from this introduction. Obviously, is backed by WPP now. It sits at the intersection of data, trust, and creator collaborations. And of course, Mae is at the helm of it all, from vetting influencers at scale, which is very tough, and to navigate brand safety in 2025. We are unpacking what it really takes to protect reputation while building authentic connections in the creator economy. Mae, welcome to Impulse.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I just said to our audience that there is a lot to unpack from this introduction, which we'll do. But let's start on a fun note. One social media platform trend that you'd be happy to see disappear tomorrow.
Yeah, I'd love to see just that really sort of glossy, inauthentic, like clearly staged content go away. I think the authenticity is the best. And when you have creators who are just sharing really cool, real stories, it's always so much better.
Wonderful. So do you spend more time on TikTok or Instagram, or you're a Twitter person? Give us a social media side of Mae.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a heavy TikTok user for sure. I use Instagram as well. Have to be on both of them, and YouTube and LinkedIn are and actually we're doing a lot of campaigns now on Facebook too. So I'm across everything. But in terms of like, I have a down moment, I want to hang out, before bed, I'll usually get on TikTok.
Well, that's not the right time to use social media before going to bed, but we all do that.
Yeah, I know my sleep scores aren't that good.
Well, you built obviously from a bootstrapped startup to a WPP backed agency, working with some of the world's biggest brands. As you mentioned, you're working with Facebook now. You worked with Amazon, Google. What was the moment that made you realize influencer marketing was going to be this big before anyone, expected it? And give us the journey, bootstrap journey, as well as the, now WPP back journey also.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, I mean, before I started the company, I was a social media manager at Gilt.com, which is a fashion website. And I remember the fraud team emailed me. And they were like, hey, we have this one person who's just made $60,000 in referral credits. Can you from Pinterest, can you tell us if this is like fraud, or like if we have to like figure out what this is? And so I looked up this woman. She was one of the first Pinterest influencers. I was like, no, this is legitimate. She went to school at Southern Methodist University, was a sorority, like head of her sorority, clearly like had a fashion sense that people were loving. And she was just linking to Gilt and getting a ton of referral credits. And interestingly, this is Amber Vetterbox, who then went on to found LTK. But I didn't know it at the time. I was like, oh, this is something. Like, this is where social media is going. Everyone was spending a lot of money trying to get Facebook likes. This was like, 2010, 2011. And what we need to be doing is actually working with people who just have organic audiences that other people trust. They're really fun to watch. And when you talk about a product or a service, like, people check it out.
That's very interesting, Mae, what you said about, finding about the authenticity of that Pinterest influencer. Yeah. How did you do that back then?
It was a lot of checking, just like vibe check, So basically we built tech pretty early on to be able to say, like, here's the person's audience. Here's, do they have fake followers? That was a really big issue kind of back in the day, because so many people were buying followers and becoming larger on Instagram. So do they have real followers? Do they have real engagement? What type of people are actually following this person? And then now it's evolved too to really, be able to use AI as well. So it's like, do they have a dog? What content are they actively posting about? What's their age? What is the age of their following? When they work with brands, does that content perform better or worse than when they post organically? So there's just a ton of information, and data is so important to the work we're doing, and to really understanding which creator to get in front of a brand on it every single day.
I'm glad that you mentioned that you're pretty big on tech from the very beginning. So it's a perfect segue for me to, talk about our product, which we're building at Phyllo, social media screening API, that flags, of course, historically risky content across creators' past activities and not just what's live now. So from your vantage point, does this kind of pre-campaign screening feel like a must-have for the next era of influencer marketing, particularly agencies?
I mean, yeah, I think it's the same thing as celebrity endorsements were, in the 80s and 90s. You need to know, is the superstar, is the celebrity that you're aligning with, do they have the same values that the brand has? Do they talk about the same things? Do they care about the same things? And is this going to make sense for the brand long term? And influencer marketing has grown up so much that a lot of these influencers are making, hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars working with these brands. So if you're a brand, this is a significant investment, and you got to know who you're aligning yourself with. And so I think it's really important to really do your research on every single person that you're talking to.
Right. And just to expand that a bit more, let's talk about the brand risk, which you just mentioned. Yep. We've seen all brands, scramble when old influencers post resurface, right? Yep. Kanye West's moment with whatever he's going through right now. Yep. All the brands that are associated with him must be, going through hell. So how do you define a safe creator partnership today, and what sets that bar?
Yeah, so a big part of that is actually understanding where the brand is at. I think if you are a scrappy D2C startup and you're willing to take a little bit more risk, I think that's okay. And I'm fine with that. If you are a 200-year-old corporate conglomerate that, has to post earnings results quarterly, and your stock might take a hit if, some old Yeezy tweets pop up, I think that you have to take it, you have to look at it a lot more closely. So yeah, we work with each brand to really understand what they care about. And so, for example, we have some brands who they really care about the level of nudity and the level of how clothed the creators are that they work with. We have other clients who are they have swimwear lines. They don't care. They're making sure that it's just not too provocative. But it kind of raises some really interesting questions as to, what's appropriate for each brand. And for each brand, it's different. So we actually sit down with every company and understand, how important is language? How important is swearing? How important are our political views or lack thereof? How important is nudity or, drug use? And for every brand, it really falls on a spectrum, and it can be quite different. And it can be different for different types of things too. So we really make sure that every brand at least understands who they're working with, and they can make their own decision as to who they work with and what level of risk is good for them. Because we're not in the censorship game either. I think that there actually can be some really interesting things that happen if you're working with a creator who's super risque and gets a lot of attention. That might be exactly what your brand needs right now, but it has to be part of a larger strategy that makes sense. And the brand has to know it. It's never good if it's a surprise.
Right. Can you give us an example of any past campaign that obviously did with a risque influencer?
No, well, I will say just with our brand checks, right? We had one creator who mentioned that she was an Amazon beauty junkie in her profile. Okay. And she's a fantastic creator, but we're like, hey, you're literally getting flagged, and brands aren't working with you because you're using the word junkie, and and they don't want anything that that is that dialed in. So I think even something that simple, and the creator was like, what? I don't even care about that's that. I wrote that.
What does that even mean?
I wrote that forever ago, it just means that they're obsessed with beauty finds on Amazon.
The word is the problem.
And so like, so the fact that they were like, oh my God, there are actually probably a lot of brands who maybe using some software didn't totally understand what,
Junkie. Yeah.
Yeah. They were like, hey, like this is like, is this a drug reference? So we told her like, hey, you should just change that. She did. And I think it unblocked a lot more work for her.
Interesting. I mean, to all the creators listening to this right now, I mean, these kinds of things get flagged nowadays very easily. So better to be on the safe side or be more creative, let's say. Also on this, I really liked what you said that you're not also on the censorship game. So is it too cautious to reject someone over a 10-year-old post, or somebody must have deleted something? But of course, we have tech now, which can resurface that also.
I really think it depends on the brand, right? And it also depends on the post. So I think it's like the more info you have, the better. We're talking right now, in like May 2025, like anything could be controversial at this time. Like, honestly, and that's something that we're actually dealing with right now with clients. It's like someone talking about Harvard, might actually be super controversial right now today for one brand and not for another brand. So there's just different levels of like risk that people are willing to take on. And some brands, like a little risk might help you. A little buzz around something might help you. And then for other brands, it's like, absolutely not. We need squeaky clean creators. And I think that's okay too. But I think as long as everyone understands, hey, here's the strategy, here's how we're identifying these people, here's what we're finding. And then also looking to see if like performance is working too. Like I've seen some brands who go way too far in terms of censorship and only wanting to work with creators, one who've like maybe never posted about any of their competitors or like have never posted about anything ever. But at that point, it's like, are they also posting nothing of relevance or value? And do people even care what they say? Are they tapped into major trends that sometimes are controversial? So you have to make sure you're not affecting performance as well. And I think that's a big thing. So, everything's on a spectrum, and we try to make sure that the brand knows where they are on the spectrum, and we're constantly evaluating to see if that's the right place to be.
Right. In a way, it's quite antithetical to influencer, economy, because influencers tend to be free, right? That's why they're influencers. Yep. They're not bound by an industry, maybe the conventions of an industry that you can't say this, you can't say that. But let's say, for example, IShowSpeed, he can say anything in his life. How do you contain that, right? That's why he's an influencer. So it's a pretty interesting moment.
Yeah, right? I sometimes think of it as there's really like a canyon in between the way a brand thinks about a creator partnership and the way a creator thinks about the partnership. So our real job is to be the bridge in that canyon and make sure like, hey, the brand's getting everything they want and need, and they're getting the performance out of this, and it's making sense to them, and they're getting all the value out of it. And then at the same time, the creator's getting a ton of value. They're getting, payment. They're getting to further their career, build up their portfolio of brands, get more work from that brand, but also not sacrificing any of their authenticity and not sacrificing any of the love that their audience has for them. And that is sometimes that bridge feels more like a tightrope. I think that's why we're in high demand. That's why people need companies like ours, because it can be, it's you have to make sure that you're finding alignment, even when sometimes priorities are very different.
Right. So in a way, risk management is a very big part of running an agency in influencer marketing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's really important. I would say in general, the biggest thing that we do is influencer identification and recruitment. And you got to make sure that you're choosing, and that comes down to, are you working with the right people who are going to drive the right outcomes? So risk management is definitely a piece of that for sure.
Right. Now, speaking of scaling, because obviously he's like, sitting right at the helm of the cutting edge. So from 50 creators to 50,000 now, I guess more than 50,000.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have campaigns. We're running campaigns, not just the number of creators. We're running campaigns with over 50,000 creators. So
wow.
So yeah, we have the scale at which we're able to work is, we currently have a campaign where we'll work with over 200,000 creators by the end of the year.
Okay.
So yeah, scale is a huge part of what we do, but you got to make sure that you're not, you're still delivering A+ work. Just because you're working with more people doesn't mean that you can, the experience can be any less than excellent for each and every creator and for the brand for that matter. So that's kind of like the crux of what we're solving, I would say, for most brands. How are we working with the right creators, working with them at the right scale?
Yeah.
Hitting the right performance, and all that's just so important.
And working with so many creators on so many campaigns, I'm sure you're using a lot of tech. So can you give us an overview of your tech stack at Obviously, right from the identification, creator search to, let's say, identification of risk and brand fit, everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We've built almost everything in house. So we handle all identification. We handle all like the CRM that is just managing all the creators. We handle the entire workflow management. All of that is done internally. And that's also connected to our shipping and fulfillment capabilities and our ability to communicate really quickly with each and every creator. So yeah, it's really end to end. And it's interesting to see, like, as the space develops, everything that tech needs to develop along with it, and understanding, where brands are most excited about, like, the growth happening in the space and where they're looking to allocate, more and more money for what types of campaigns has been really interesting. Just to be like, okay, cool, this is how we need to keep growing. And yeah, I think it's been a real benefit that we're in total control. Because things change so quickly. There could be an update with an algorithm, or we might need to move everyone from TikTok to Instagram at a moment's notice. Like we can do all of that because it's our tech.
Got it. You were early, in championing micro influencers, even when everyone was chasing reach in a sea of mega influencers. Why do small voices still matter so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think that micro influencers just have really awesome stories to tell, and typically they have one thing that they talk about passionately. So I use this example, but if I'm into I just went surfing like a week ago. I now follow like some really badass like women longboard surfers. They might have 5,000 followers, they might have 10,000 followers, but that every single person who follows that account really likes longboard surfing and is a woman or likes women who longboard surf. So you have found a very highly concentrated group of people. Now compare that to following Selena Gomez. Like, I could be anyone. Maybe I follow her too, but are you trying to reach women CEOs who live in New York City? Paying I don't even know how many millions of dollars it would cost now to work with her. I could find that out probably with a phone call. But I wouldn't hit my very core target demo and make like a very real relationship with that person in a way that I would if I worked with 25 micro influencers who were really into longboard surfing.
Right. So in a way, mega influencers tend to become celebrities, and celebrities have all kinds of following. People who might be there for research purposes, people who are actually fans, haters, everyone actually keeping an eye on you. So that's a very good distinction. What does a modern influencer vetting process actually look like at scale? Because we hear of scaling, which takes time, reports getting generated, social media background checks taking time. So what signals do you prioritize? Content themes, audience tone, past partnerships, or anything else?
Yeah, we're really looking at, for each brand, it's a little bit different, but we look for a lot of first party data that we have access to. So when we're trying to work with a creator, we see all of their data. So like all the stats, their performance, their past performance, what brands they've worked with, how their organic posts are doing, how their growth is, how their view to follower ratio is, and how that looks over time. So we're covering all of that. But then there's a big element of, do they really like this brand? Do they use this brand frequently? Do they have really cool ideas that align with the brand? We're actually, I don't really know any other agency that does this. But every time we work with a creator, we give them a creative brief, like a prompt, and then they tell us what their story would be. And that's a really important part of our vetting process, because we're like, is this person just tuned in the right way to this brand? Like, is this piece of content really going to work well in terms of that creator's audience really like responding positively to this content? That's really important because we need the performance. But also, is the brand going to say like, wow, this is totally aligned with what we're trying to do long term and short term? And so that piece is something that we introduced a few years ago, and it's been working really well. So it's just like, and then a brand gets a ton of, imagine getting 1,000 great ideas for like different TikTok or Instagram posts a creator's going to do. And like, that's a bunch of thought starters right there for any brand's creative team. So it's a really great part of that process.
Right. And also, what matters to you more, false positives or turnaround time when it comes to social media background checks? Which factor is the most important?
I think getting it right is the most important. Yeah. Okay. Everyone wants everything done yesterday, but I think we got to make sure that it's getting done correctly.
And what are some of the common false positives you see in social screening that you have to overlook?
Yeah, I think like kind of misinterpretation of what content is, like using slang or, someone thinking that something is really, controversial when actually like you look back on the content, it's like not that bad, or it made sense at the time. So yeah, I think it's also just understanding like, is this a big deal for this brand or is this a big deal for another brand? If someone's in like, a tiny swimsuit for one brand, they'll be like, okay, cool, that's great, that's us. Yep. Another brand might be like, oh my God, no, cover up. We can't work with this person. And so, but that's like good for the creator to know too. Like if that's who the creator is and that's, that's part of their personal brand, they shouldn't be working with this other brand anyway. It's not going to be good for their audience. So, and it's not going to be a long-term partnership. So I think it's just kind of really understanding where the nuance comes in. And I think a lot of people we use AI and then we also manually vet after we've narrowed down the field. And I think that's super important because you could just exclude a lot of fantastic people if you're only doing one or the other.
Right. So this tech plus people approach includes vetting video content as well, audio content as well, anything written, let's say inside the video, any object. So you're doing that manually, video thing?
No, we use AI and then we're manually vetting a much smaller curated group of people.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think it's also important just to do like Google search results, and then some brands you'll do full background checks, but you have to get approval from the creators in order to do that. So it just really depends on who the brand is and how intensive the process should be for each and every brand.
That's very interesting what you just said. You have to take permission from influencers first to do a complete background check on them.
Yeah, to do like a real deal one.
That's really
like the same thing, like like the type of background check you do for an employment.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Let's take stock of the future that lays ahead. There is a growing talk about influencer background checks being the new hygiene factor in campaigns, in almost every campaign. So how do you see the role of compliance evolving in influencer marketing going ahead?
Well, I think it's just important. Like I think it's just like I think a lot of brands need to be doing it.
And influencers need to go through their past posts and start taking the online imprint very seriously. Not just, leave things out there, maybe 10 years old, 20 years old. Would you advise that or what?
If it makes sense for them, yeah. But, I think it's okay.
Last couple of questions. Let's talk about trends. What's one shift in the creator economy that's flying under the radar right now, but you think will shape the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I think, there are two things. I think one from the brand side, I think that brands are going to rely on creators for a lot more content needs, like across the board. I think that, social media teams or creative agencies doing that content is really going away. I would say creators plus AI is probably where most brands should be to really handle the volume and the quality that they need on these social channels to like really drive results. So I think that's a huge thing. And then I think like from the creator side, I think that most creators now who are bigger have a talent agent. I think they also need a business manager, or they need someone, maybe business manager is the wrong word, but they need someone who's like building their business, who's their CEO of their business. And I think that you look at some of the biggest creators, they've been able to find that pretty easily. Either it's a family member or a friend, someone who really is dialed in. But a lot of creators could really have even bigger careers and build bigger businesses if they had someone on their team that they trusted to like really treat this as a business. It's hard to do that as a creator yourself because just the sheer amount of output that you need to create, like I feel for most creators, I think it's incredible, just the creative output day in, day out. They're able to provide their audiences, but they need someone in their corner who's just making all the right business decisions. And a lot of people have that agent they had the agent who's like going to make the brand deal, but they don't have the person who's laying the foundation in terms of building a company. So I think those are like the two biggest trends I see.
Wonderful. What's next for Obivously? Let's say the next 2 years plan.
Yeah, I mean, we're growing. Like we're just, making sure that we've got some fantastic brands that we work with. Yeah, we're doing larger and larger campaigns, just like more and more ambitious work. Reporting is getting more and more like dialed in. So it's a really exciting time to be in influencer marketing for sure.
Indeed. Last couple of rituals we make our guests go through. You have to give us a book recommendation. It can be your all-time favorite or the one that you're currently reading. So that's the first one. Yeah.
Sure. $1 Billion Whale is a fantastic book. I don't know if you read that. It's about this fraudulent businessman out of Malaysia. Really, really interesting. Just like fun read, wild read.
Yeah. The second one is, would you like to nominate anyone for our show?
Yeah, I have a few good people. Stephanie Kaplan-Lewis would be great. She's the CEO of her campus. Yeah, and they do influencer marketing on college campuses.
Oh, okay,
Really great business.
My team will definitely reach out to her. Mae, thank you so much for coming to the show and being the leading light in influencer marketing. We hope, obviously, continues to lead in the industry, and we hope to have you again, maybe on the next season of Impulse.
Sounds great. Awesome.
And thank you so much for watching the episode. Please let us know in the comments section below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on any other Apple Music or any other app of your choice, please reach out to us as well. And find Mae on LinkedIn and do connect with her. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Impulse, the influencer marketing podcast, is brought to you by Phyllo. Phyllo is the easiest way to get access to authenticated creator data from hundreds of different platforms. To know more about Phyllo, visit getphyllo.com. That's get, PHYLLO.com. Also, make sure to search for Influencer Marketing Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube Podcasts. And don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Phyllo, thank you so much for listening.